Today, I'm joined by George Goodwin, also known as OMGiDRAWEDit. A lot of people in Tezos know him through Tezzardz, but there's a much bigger story there than one collection. He's built a style people recognize right away. Bright colors, strange characters, packed scenes, but the longer you sit with the work, the more you realize there's usually something deeper going on underneath it. So I wanted to talk about how that voice took shape, what drew him to Tezos, what Tezzardz really came from, and where his work is heading now. George, thanks for coming on.
Hey man, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. This is a snazzier setup than last time.
Well, thanks. Now, I want to start before Tezzardz, before Tezos, before any of that, before
Yeah,
people
sure.
knew your name through the space. What kind of artist were you trying to become, and what did you feel your work was missing back then?
Ooh, good question. Um, I studied illustration at university. So yeah, I mean I finished uni with the intention of being like more of an illustrator, like in a commercial sense. So um that was kind of how I started out. But the truth is that I didn't ever really like that kind of direction massively anyway. I kind of always wanted to do my own thing. So having to kind of find commissions and approach art directors and stuff is it was fine, but it was just like I've always wanted to just be making stuff as much as possible. So as soon as you have something that takes you away from that, it becomes laborious quite quickly, obviously. So yeah, I my plan was to just be a kind of standard commercial illustrator, and I grew up drawing. I didn't go and take my university degree until I was much older, but I'd always been somebody that kind of made drawings, paintings, music, quite a kind of tactile, creative person my whole life. And yeah, the illustration angle was more, I suppose, because it felt appropriate to be able to move into something that was like financially secure. I get not secure, that's the wrong word because there's no guarantees with an illustration like path or degree, but in terms of like the broader art world, working on that kind of going in that path, I think feels like there's more opportunity to have a kind of more traditional career, I guess, in terms of making a living. Um, so that's kind of what my initial plan was. But um, yeah, the kind of the illustration came because I did the degree in illustration and sort of went down that path more with my artworks rather than being like, more of a painter or I guess like, it's so difficult because now I look at what I mess around with in terms of my art and it's like so unillustrative in a lot of ways. Like I'm not just using a pen or I mean, I was using an iPad pencil, but you know what I mean? Like it feels very different to that in the way I've ended up going with like using various other tools and even like I mentioned today, I've started kind of making my own tools now as well with the help of AI. Obviously, that's that's become like a big thing that's going crazy for everybody, right? But I was never sure where that led. I feel like I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, to be honest. But like
It's fine. I love it.
but like I I've been struggling with trying to understand where AI fits for me because using it to make images and the output be the image that it's made me, and that then be like, here's my artwork, is just never like I've never felt like that aligned with how I like to create or how I like to feel when I create. But then I recently, literally like a week or 2 weeks ago, I got a Claude subscription. Um, and this is my first like proper AI subscription rather than just using it like as a free thing to kind of smart Google or whatever. And yeah, I started realizing that you can vibe code, which is cool. And I don't know anything about coding like at all, but I was like immediately starting to see what I could do that would allow me to kind of work on my art in a way where I wasn't making finished artworks, but I was making actual tools again to be able to make the artwork. So I've been kind of making very small and very, primitive, but kind of digital art tools to make new art for myself, like drawing tools with animated pens and glitch effects and stuff that are pretty cool. So that's what I've been doing the last like few days really, because I sort of suddenly had this sort of I guess a bit of a penny drop moment where I was like, rather than using AI to make the artwork, I'm going to use it to make tools that I can then make artwork within, and that's seems like quite a cool thing to me. And I can see this, I've been doing a lot of thinking with regards to where AI is taking us as artists, and I think for me, I've started to realize that, and probably for many others, it's going to be um, that we're using it to make our own tools and our own, um, you know, apps and stuff for making art with, rather than using it specifically to make art, if that makes sense.
Well, absolutely. I came across something one of your tutors told you that really actually stuck with me.
Right,
As you improve, remember this piece. Do whatever you can to not lose your style. It is
right,
special.
right.
When someone tells you that early, does it
Yeah.
land right away or does it only become meaningful later once you realize how easy it is to lose your voice while you're improving?
Honestly, that lesson has stuck with me like massively. Um, I wish I could remember. It was um, like a masterclass at uni. So it was like a teacher, like a separate like mentor had come in for the day. And I think they did end up working at our uni for like a more like later on. I think they came and worked as a lecturer a bit more. But this initial interaction was just like a masterclass, and it was quite near the start of my university degree. And the truth is that like I I thought I was okay at drawing then, but like you look back and it's like, okay, I was pretty bad to be fair. And I think there'd been a bit of beef between me and one of the other actual tutors because of various reasons. One of them being that I was like 10, nearly 15 years older than everyone else in the class. And I felt like I was having a very different experience anyway. And because of that, I was like, I guess maybe a bit more ballsy with the teacher, and when I was being spoken to like a first year student, which is fair because I was, I kind of found it a little bit like boilerplate, that for everybody the same kind of stuff was being said regardless. And I was like, look, I think you need to appreciate I've come here as like a 30-year-old. Like, can I get a bit more leeway? And he'd said to me, like, you're one of like about three people in the class that can't draw. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's pretty mean considering when you looked at my portfolio, you were like, this is awesome. So um, I kind of took that in a bit of a bad way, as you can imagine. And like at the same time, I was just like, well, what does he know anyway? It's fine. So that kind of happened and that happened in like a tutorial, like a one-to-one tutorial a few days before. And then we had this masterclass, and this other guy came in and was just like said to me this thing, right? And I was like, yeah, sometimes with art, people see something in you that others can't see and they'll never see. And I think that is something that as an artist you have to grow to understand, especially as you get more popular. Because like at the end of the day, I'm absolutely certain there are always going to be people that dislike my work, dislike my my take on things, my attitude, my way. Like that's life. But I think like when you're quite susceptible to like negative comments, and you're in this learning environment, and you've just started uni as a 30-year-old that's like trying to have a huge shift, like reconsider their whole life choices up to this point, and the teacher says like you're bad, and then another teacher says it's like it's bad but in a way that's like very special. That was really nice for me, and it kind of, those two things kind of came hand in hand. And to be honest, I feel like those two comments coming at a similar time have sort of encapsulate my entire existence as an artist, like the battle I'm always having, where it's like, do I do this or do I do that? Who do I follow? Like trying to follow my own belief and my own skill, and kind of trust myself is still something I struggle with massively. So yeah, does that answer the question?
I feel like it does. I feel like it does. I feel like that's also a good place to kind of get into the part of the story a lot of digital artists probably relate to. Uh, Before NFTs changed anything, what was
Mm.
frustrating you the most about the normal path for an artist making detailed digital work? Was it the money, the way the kind of
um
labor gets priced, or the feeling maybe
y-
digital art still wasn't being valued on its own terms?
yeah, definitely. So all of those I would say for a start, but I mean, like for me personally, something that's always been a struggle is I obviously have a very laborious style, right? Compared to some people like who can maybe smash out a few pieces in a day or like a few pieces in a week. If I set into like a kind of classic OMG piece, and really want to like want to do it on a big scale, like it's easily going to be a month's work. And when you're getting trying to get commissions that are like for like a small magazine or like a local brand or whatever, trying to price things in a way that makes sense is quite difficult because um, at the end of the day, I'm quite I've been what's the word I'm looking for? Like uh, that slips it slips my mind, but like I've always priced my work more based on my time, just because of the way that I've kind of learned as an illustrator to be. So um, it always was hard to price because like if somebody was like, "Can you make me something like this?" and I'm like, honestly, that's going to take me a month, and if you commission me for a month, it's going to be this amount of money, and they're just like, laughing at the concept of it being anything other than like $100 or pounds, obviously for me. Um, and I'm just like, what can you do? It's very difficult. Like you want to take on jobs, but also trying to like make work that you feel like isn't very good because you tried to squeeze it into a like a time scale that doesn't work for you is difficult. And I found a lot of the time what was happening, especially in those early days, is that effectively work way more like for free, because I'd say, okay, they'd be like, our budget is this amount, and I'd be like, oh man, like that's never going to cover it. But at the same time, like when you're trying to build yourself up, when you're trying to get more jobs, when you're aware of the fact that something's going to take you a long time regardless, you kind of have to make a compromise. And I just feel like, sadly for me, I'm always compromising because of the fact that I've unfortunately got this really, eye-watering, laborious style that's never really gotten quicker. Um, if I want to do something super impressive, so yeah, that's
It's
that's
very
been the
impressive.
biggest.
Your detail work is unbelievable. I find
Thanks,
myself
man.
stuck in aspects of your work for a long time. Just like I just caught Nindo the other day. I didn't even notice that one before. Thank you for that one. That was very sneaky.
The what was that?
Yes,
Sorry.
Nintendo and Nindo. I saw your
Oh, right.
Nindo.
Yeah,
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 right.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. So
yeah. Little
something
details.
something I've always done is like, so ever since I was a kid, I loved bootleg stuff. Like I
Mm.
used to look at a lot of bootleg books. Like I don't know if you've ever seen these where like you'll get like fake toys And like, have you seen that kind of stuff? And like, I live down on the
Yes.
coast in the I live on the coast in the UK, and like, there's loads of tat shops that pop up around like coastal towns in the summer where you can buy like stuff for the beach, but it's also quite often got like really cruddy toys that are like rip-offs of popular famous toys. And I've always loved that kind of stuff. And those like the packaging and the branding and stuff that they come up with, I just think is amazing. And I've always tried to put that into my artwork. And a lot of people are like, do you do that as a, as a security system against like ripping off a brand or whatever? And the truth is that I do that, yes, but like actually originally it came from I wasn't considering that at first because I never thought that any of these pieces would sell or blow up at any point because you just don't. And yeah, I put in all of these like secrets because they're just like how I viewed the world when I was a kid and still now really, I just love that kind of fake bootleg stuff. And yeah, like I'll put little jokes in there, like instead of Nintendo, it's Nintendo, and if you do look, you'll find it. And that's awesome that you like looked deep enough to find that. So I think that's like quite a small, is it on like the bedroom nostalgia watch or something like that?
I loved it. I love all of it, man. This isn't about me. This is about you. But I grew up in the 80s and early 90s. That's my childhood, and a lot of the stuff that you produce just it nails me, man. So thank you, just from me.
No worries, man.
Now
Thank you.
you've seen the early hen period, the louder market phase, the downturn, the calmer stretch after that. When you look across all these phases, what do you think stayed true about the Tezos art scene and what changed in a way that taught you something?
Um, yeah, wow, this is a good one, right? So actually, I kind of was thinking a bit about this today because Kika posted saying like it's 5 years since the first object for object today, and I joined Tezos like a couple days after that first object for object. I didn't partake in that one, but there was another one like pretty soon after, which I did partake in, and yeah, I think my first mint was like the 29th or 30th of March, so it's like we're like literally a couple days away from my fifth anniversary of minting on Tezos. And yeah, I mean, firstly, like it feels insane that it's been 5 years that I've been kind of pretty much every day logging in to X and GMing people in the Tezos community. And yeah, like obviously it does feel very different now. And the truth is that like I have like quite a tight knit group of friends, a lot of who are kind of some of the most OG Tezos artists, obviously. And we have like, we have a group chat and we're all very good friends and we'll hang out at real, at events and stuff that we're at. Are kind of small. It's a small but like very tight group. Very like with some very knowledgeable characters as well that are well versed across the entire world of digital art, not just NFTs. Um, so I feel very fortunate to have that group of friends and be in there. It's like our little dark forest. Do you know the dark forest? Do you know of that? The like dark forest theory or whatever, where like when the internet kind of collapses to nothing but bots and like kind of not far off where it is
Oh,
now.
dead
Um,
internet theory?
I don't know if it's dead internet theory. I think it's the article's called like the dark forest theory or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what it's called, but it's like there'll be pockets of like secret internet where people still hang out that are like just having a nice time and it's not like the hellhole that's all of the rest of the internet. Um, so yeah, I kind of have my little dark forest gang, which is cool. Um, and yeah, then there's like I guess so. One of my friends said that they went to a real an event in LA that I think Absa Deity, the collector Absa Deity, I think he put it together. And it was my friend Michael, Fantastic Planet, and he said somebody was their third wave Tezos artist or like a second wave Tezos artist or something, and that made me laugh a lot, to be honest, because I just think like just that kind of stuff just makes me chuckle. Basically, I don't even know why, to be honest, but yeah, like I think there's like I guess you could call like a newer breed of people in Tezos that are maybe not so. I mean, there's definitely like loads of people that don't have a clue who I am at all that have joined the scene like at a later date, and like that's totally fine. Like I'm not fussed at all about that, but I just think that it's quite interesting to like sort of sit back and be like a kind of you know part of the Tezos furniture, you could say, and watch things unfold and find it all quite amusing because it's like if you've been here since the very first days of Hen, you've pretty much seen it all across the NFT scene by now, not just on Tezos but like just broadly in crypto. 5 years is like a long time to be absorbing everything, and yeah, it's quite funny. I feel like a wise old granddad, but
Are you Gandalf the gray now, or wait? No, wait, he's the white. Which one does he become at the end? I can't remember.
yeah, the white.
After he
Yeah, I
fights
don't
the
know.
Balrog.
He's got yeah, 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 yeah. I don't think I'm
Well,
that far gone. I'm not that far gone, but I'm like,
no,
but
definitely revered
but
though.
yeah, yeah, but yeah. I mean, like, I see a lot of conversations and things happening sometimes, and I think I have a little chuckle or a bit of an eye roll, and I just think like, actually, maybe with my experience, I should be like weighing in here and saying something, but I've also just kind of got to the point where it's like doesn't feel like it's worth the potential onslaught of arguments sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of had my fill of that, and in the most extra time in early 2021. Um, so I now am quite happy to just sit back and let other people kind of hash it out and just sort of chuckle and be like, back in my day, you know. But
Well,
yeah,
that kind of brings us to Tezzardz, right? I mean, which I think people
yeah,
can
yeah,
flatten too easily if they only look at it from the outside. From a
yeah,
distance, it can get filed away as a collection success story, but I think underneath that, it feels like it came from a reaction to something. Were you actually responding to when you made Tezzardz, and were you also trying to show that if this format was going to exist on Tezos, it could still feel more about the art than the usual PFP nonsense?
yeah. Like 100%. I mean, there's a few things. I obviously I've spoken about Tezzard so much by this point, and it's kind of like it is. I do feel like I'm kind of rehashing things a lot of the time because I kind of have said it, but the truth is that yes, they were a response. At the time, obviously, I was responding to the kind of ETH projects that were popping up like 10 times a day, that were quite a lot of them are very bad. Let's face the facts. Like some of them are great, and I'm never gonna not say that there's some great ones. But there was like a real onslaught of like terrible stuff, and it was just like Tezos was trying to do something that nobody really believed in it, and a lot of the artists had popped up on Tezos and and a lot of people were realizing that like a lot of good art was happening on Tezos early on. A lot of people were using it as a really like an experimental playground, and just some like amazing stuff was happening, and still is, to be honest. But um, at that moment, like it felt like Tezos was this place, the place to be if you were like a real like kind of underground artist. Like it just felt like immediately, obviously felt like home to a lot of people. And it was that somebody had said like, what would you do if you were going to do a PFP? And I was like, I would do this. And I literally, I was hungover. I literally was like sat trying not to be sick, having like a really hilarious conversation with a couple of my collectors at the time, and say like, I had a bit of like, I guess like I was feeling a bit jippy because I was so hungover. Do you know what I mean? Like I had a bit of like post-alcohol confidence. So I was being a bit
Hmm.
sassy, like more sassy than usual. And I was like, I would do this, and I drew the very first Tezzard, which was the hen Tezzards, which I think are like there was like six. Um, and I said like, we'll call them fuckers. Like it was all this entire like thing was kind of made up on the spot as like a reactionary piss take to the concept of PFP. And at the same, like, this is what you can do if you have somebody that's an artist do it, especially someone who's like good at character design, has like a humorous nature, um, which all of these things kind of made for the perfect storm at the time. And like I just I just did what I did, uh, and it kind of worked, But yeah, it was a reaction to the concept of PFPs. And then when Object approached me and said like this will be the first one this way, like with its own contract, its own like web page, like a proper minting experience for it. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yes, of course I want to do it, because being the person to kind of to take on that responsibility and be the kind of the sort of beacon holder for what came after. I'm really proud that I did that. And obviously lots of other shit happened that made me not happy, and like I'm not going to talk about that. But anyway, like um sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit. I never ever would have done Tezzardz if I wasn't approached as to do the first one. So if Object had gone to, there were countless other projects. If they'd gone to other people first and I hadn't been asked first, I wouldn't have made Tezzardz. They only happened because of the concept of them being, you know, they're so Tezos, and I just think that like at the time they really embodied and were what I was seeing on Tezos in terms of how I was trying to like portray this character, or these characters, and they simply wouldn't exist if Object had gone to somebody else first. And I think that that's something that maybe a lot of people don't realize, that yeah, they were one John Skelly or Neons or one of the others from being never made. So I do think that there's like a certain element of like all of the things coming together in a way that were quite like, I don't want to say fate, but do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. Like Tim and Brian from
Fairly
Object really,
serendipitous.
yeah, that's the word, isn't it? Yeah, like um a lot of things came together, and it worked because of how they came together. And if they hadn't, it wouldn't have worked. And if they hadn't, it probably, well, like I say, it wouldn't have happened. Because I just never would have made them if they weren't the first ones. Because I just think that they kind of had to be to like have that thing that makes them special, that makes them part of Tezos, them being called Tezzardz, like all of it. Just yeah, this is it's the serendipity of it all. It had to be that way, and if it hadn't, well, who knows?
Well, I feel like that's a good bridge into the newer work because bedroom nostalgia feels personal and nostalgic. Well, and forgive me if I mispronounce this, disordurance feels heavier and more anxious. It's more about carrying on through the chaos. Was there a shift in how you were feeling about life or the world that made the newer series feel necessary?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, like I would say that the older, the bedroom nostalgia stuff is very much more me thinking about how things had been up to a point, and then the newer stuff is much more me now, how I'm experiencing the world currently. I guess so. I've been kind of playing catch up with myself, I suppose. The thing with bedroom nostalgia is that it was because they're all each one is a true story of my youth, you know, and like various stories kind of mixed together, and certain elements that are kind of tweaked a little bit to tell the story in a way that kind of makes it work for the drawing, but all of it is completely true. And eventually you run out of those stories. And I always said that Bedroom Nostalgia would finish at BN 30, right? And I think it's at like BN 27. So there's still three to go. Like I am gonna do them. It's just like, you know, finding the right moment, really. I think, to be honest, that's one of those things where I worry too much about it. I should just make them and just mint them. It's fine. But I never wanted to push past the point of them being real stories. And I think that, like, again, like if you don't know me or you don't know the context of the bedrooms, you could so easily just be like, that's just like a series where he's just been like, okay, here's some cool stuff from the past. Let's just keep making a bedroom, grind them out, whatever. And to be honest, it did get to a point where it felt like I was grinding them out because it was so popular. And like like when you're an artist, it makes you feel like bad if you're trying to do something that's like a true personal tale, or like real stuff about yourself, and then it kind of turns into something it's not supposed to be. And I feel like that has happened quite a lot with my work as I got more popular. Like, you know, it's inevitable that things get misconstrued and taken in a way that that become very financial. And obviously the difference is that now it's very much not like that. And I feel like it would probably be a good time to finish Bedroom Nostalgia whilst like just the people that are still interested in me and the art are still looking. Um, but yeah, it was always about like telling the stories of my past, and now I'm kind of telling the stories of maybe like my present, a bit of my like worry for the future. Um, and yeah, I'm also kind of I don't want to say a crossroads, because I'm not like, I think the new work looks more different than it does, if that makes sense to you. Like when I first put out Disorderance, I was like, nobody's gonna get this because it's like way more naive, and like um it doesn't look so much like what people are used to from me. And then like it's had a really good response, and lots of people have messaged me saying like, I love this work, and it feels like you've really like tapped into something new here that's really cool. And oftentimes the worries that you have aren't real, they're just internal things that you have to get over, and I'm learning to get over that. But also this is what these pieces are about as well, you know. It's kind of like a journey where I'm learning how to be less afraid whilst drawing about being afraid of everything that's happening. um, and that's sort of where those pieces are coming from. um, I kind of wanted it to feel like it's being drawn by somebody who's literally like shaking at their desk drawing it, you know, like genuine anxiety is happening. And that's why you're seeing like the the glitch and the purposely like broken lines, and it looks like it's been drawn like whilst I'm being chased by something. Do you know what I mean? That was always the kind of intention. And that was the intention with the series. But then what's happened is I like working this way so much that I'm now finding that I'm making more work like this, or in this kind of vein, that isn't part of Disorderance. It's just become like a next step or an evolution in my style. And I think that probably I'm going to be now working in this way until I feel like this is exhausted, or I'm bored of it, or new things come that I want to do or try. And I'll going forwards, I hope I'll have more confidence to make those changes as I feel like they're happening. Because the truth is that I've been making so much different art, but there's a certain like part of me that always feels that this kind of this brand that I've created, whether that's consciously or subconsciously, I feel like I have a certain thing that people expect to see from me. And I so desperately want to like break out of that headspace, and I'm trying so hard at the moment to work on things to break out of that headspace, and remember that I am an artist, and that fundamentally like I could turn around tomorrow and just make a completely different bunch of stuff that's nothing like what I do now. And that's fine. it doesn't have to be liked, it doesn't have to sell, it doesn't even have to be posted on the internet. It's for me. And I feel that the cool thing that's happened with Disorderance is that I've been kind of working on all this different stuff and feeling really good about all this different stuff, but still putting out the kind of classic OMG I drawed it stuff because of like a lack of confidence in myself or a worry in myself. And now I've kind of found this place where I'm like, I'm enjoying the work I'm making so much that I genuinely don't care how it's seen by anyone else. And that's quite a nice place to be as an artist, you know. And I think also that came, I don't know if you listened to the spaces I did with the TezTalks guys with oh my God, what's his name? Yoshi. Um, is that right?
Yeah, Yoshi over on Artsy Fridays.
Yeah. Yoshi on Artsy Fridays. Yeah. So we talked about the fact that I kind of in the last year realized I have aphantasia, which is like no internal. I have no. I don't see anything in my mind's eye. And like I didn't realize that that was something that I was different. That was different to a lot of other people. Um, and basically, when I started exploring that, and I've been doing an unbelievable amount of work on it internally through meditation, through researching it, to try and establish like what it is I actually have, how far along the spectrum of it I have it, and like because I do get some flashes of visual internal imagery like in certain at certain times. And I've noticed that like my visual memory is like I have more of a visual memory than I do of an visual imagination. So like for an example, um, if someone says think of an apple, and I try to think of an apple with my eyes shut, it's absolutely there's nothing, and I can't picture it in any way. However, if I try to like remember the apple I saw in the shop when I was at the shop this morning, I get like a I get like a millisecond of something, and it's still non-visual. I still can't quite figure out what it is, but I've been like going down all these different paths to try and understand what I have. And now I can compare it to what happens when I meditate, where if I get to a certain point of meditation, I get quite strong visuals, just like I'll get like a static image that maybe will last for like a second or 2 seconds, but I can see something there. Like, so I then knew that I had something I could compare what my usual experience is like, which is very much almost nothing, like 98% nothingness. Um, and then I have very visual dreams, which apparently is quite a common thing with people with aphantasia. They still have, they'll still dream in full, full visuals. But then in the morning, when I try to remember them, I can remember them like in word form, but I can't see anything. So something I've been trying to do, although I'm not particularly good at it, because who's particularly good at waking up in the night after a dream and writing it down? I've been trying to do a bit of that um, to see if it takes me off into another direction artistically, what sort of stories that opens up, what memories and stuff, and also like what fears and just generally strange shit I'm thinking about in my dreams. Um, yeah. So anyway, my point I was trying to make, and the reason why I brought up the aphantasia is because I realized if I can't see anything in my mind's eye, why do I feel so determined to work in a certain way? Like, why don't I just make stuff in a completely different way? And then I was like, okay, let's try that. So I started making very different work, even making a secret alt account, um, and minting various pieces like without anyone knowing who I was. And that was a really healing process for me as well, because it kind of answered a lot of questions that I had about myself, who I am as an artist, whether I'm like, whether people are interested in me if they don't know it's me. And all of those questions were answered for me. I'm not going to tell you how they were answered because that defeats the object in a lot of ways, but they, a lot of the questions I was worrying about and had for myself were answered through that. And that whole process of studying my aphantasia, understanding that I don't have to just make illustrations in this one style forever, and making completely different art. Okay, I'm just going to make some stuff and see what happens. It's going to be different. I'm just going to not even think about making it in that style. And weirdly, it still feels, a lot of it to me still, it still feels like very me, like it's quite like there's still like some confessional elements to it, and it's quite like personal. And you could say there's some elements of it being kind of nostalgic as well, but it's like a very different, it's all very different. And then I was just like, right, well, okay, I don't need to do or worry about this anymore. I'm just going to make some different stuff, and I'm going to mint it and see what happens. And shocker, I was worrying about nothing, just like I pretty much always do in my life.
Well, last thing, when people look back at your work years from now, what do you hope they understand about you that they still might not fully see right now?
Um, well, that is a very good question. What do I think? Like, to be honest, I don't care. I'm not like somebody who's sitting here and thinking like absolutely for a fact, like I'm going to be looked at in 100 years' time. Like maybe because of the way that the internet is, and because of being like a Tezos pioneer, and we all know that the truth is that Tezos is going to be the biggest blockchain eventually. It just has to be, right? So when that happens, and 100 years time, assuming we haven't terminated ourselves, uh, I hope that people like look back and just think like, what do I'd like? Man, this is such a tough question. I'd like people to think that my stories were interesting, and that I would hope that they would still, even in like 100 years time, I hope that people would look at my work and be like still able to find like shared memory in it. Um, but obviously that's really hard to know, because like so much of what we're making now is like, will it matter? Will it be remembered? And like the consoles and the environments and the things that we're talking about and the things that I'm talking about in my art currently, like especially with regards to shared memory, will those shared memories exist in that distant time? But it would be cool if they did, and if they do, then I would hope that I can still get people to connect via being like, wow, I sort of see my own story in this and I relate to it. Um, and also, I'd hope that people that bought my art now are still finding secrets in it in 100 years' time. But I don't know if I've really answered the question to the best of my ability there. I feel like I need a day to think about that one, to be honest,
I probably should have sent that one ahead. My bad.
mate. Sorry.
Well, George, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on today. This was great, and I appreciate you doing this.
No worries at all, man. Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, that's been